Hey, it's Dr. Jaban. Now I'm going to be talking about Babesia on a deeper level than earlier. We've posted our article in the group. We've done signs and symptoms, which I'm going to go over a little bit more. And I'm going to talk about what I've seen as successes, the protocols I've seen to work, and the truths of how you actually get to the root cause. Because Babesia seems to always want to come back. Even for people who have been well for years, it seems to recirculate. Joints start to hurt again, hands start to burn again, or cramp or tighten. Heart starts to hurt, headaches happen. I've got a whole list of all the stuff that I can think of for Babesia to go over with everybody here today. So, parasite, that's what it is. Antibiotics do not treat a parasite. Oftentimes medications are used that are anti-malarial, anti-parasitic, which seem to have some effect, but tend not to go to the deepest root. And also there are things that you shouldn't be on long term, whereas herbs you typically can be on for much longer, and you also have to pulse to get through it. So let's talk about Babesia a little bit. It likes to embed itself deep into tissues, deep in your joints, your shoulder, your hand, your elbow, your hip, to where it's really difficult to get to. Oftentimes when I'm working with people that have Babesia, as we work through that, they start to have increased heart palpitations. So in those cases, I'd oftentimes refer out and say, make sure that your cardiologist can sign off on there's nothing wrong. And so often they find absolutely nothing, even though the patient describes heart palpitations over and over and over every single day. But we've got to get that signed off on just to be sure. We can also talk about air hunger. So difficulty going upstairs, difficulty catching a breath, even just simply laying around. You just feel like you can't breathe. I've even had people diagnosed asthma who have made miracle recoveries to where asthma just doesn't seem to be there anymore because they got rid of the root cause of it. So some places you can get testing is Vibrant Labs and DNA Connections. Although there is no perfect test, there's a lot of places you can go out and you can get testing from. And a positive probably means it's positive. A negative absolutely does not mean that it's negative. It means that that test didn't see it. So if you're testing for an IgG positive, you're assuming that the immune system is perfect and that it is active and it is actually working on that infection at that moment. That's the assumption you just made. And we all know that for our chronic illness people, that our immune systems are not working the way they're supposed to, and they are not active, and they may have such a chronic level of infections that they're not even attacking certain infections in the moment. So making that assumption could lead to the demise of your treatment plan. So if you're gonna do it, those DNA tests are a little bit better, still not perfect, because you've got to catch that DNA in the moment, which sometimes requires you to be treating effectively and detoxing effectively to get that out of your body. So you can look into those tests at DNA Connections and Vibrant Labs. Now, some of my favorite things to use is Formula 3 from Natural Pharmacy, ABAB from Byron White, and ISBAB from Cellcore. Those are some of my favorites. Oftentimes I've rotated those around to where I've used multiple of them throughout a year or two long treatment plan, because we have to keep knocking it down. Because as I was explaining earlier to a couple practitioners, my goal isn't to annihilate organisms. It's to reduce toxic burden, reduce infectious burden, building up your body, optimizing your system, building up your mitochondria, building up your detoxification pathways, building up your gut health by reducing those burdens. And eventually, when your body then crests over top of that toxic burden, so toxic burden's here, as I bring it down, a little bit by Babesia, a little bit by Lyme, a little bit by parasites, a little bit by metal, a little bit by mold, as we reduce those down out of your body by detoxing them out, by getting you stronger, by helping you flush, and we start to get your body stronger, then as it gets stronger, when those infections come out of their cysts, when they come out of their hiding places, your body can take that down. So that's a big key to the thought process of this whole thing, right? Because so often we're like, well, we're going to attack Lyme, and we're going to attack Lyme for a year, and that's going to make it over with. No, that's not what we're seeing in practice. It's not what we're seeing in studies. It's not what we're seeing work. You cannot annihilate, because you're going to annihilate so many other things and break down your body. So just work on it for a while, get to a good therapeutic threshold, get a good amount knocked down, get your body built up, and then go on several different protocols, continuing throughout them, And as those knock down, then when we get to the end of all of these protocols that we need to work on for you, then we circle back around and we go, okay, do we have a little bit of heart issue again? Do we have a little bit of heavy metal in your mouth? Do we have a little bit of joint tightness? What else? Let's see. Do we have a little bit of air hunger? Because those things may recirculate back in, and then we can knock those down a little bit, knock those down a little bit, knock those down a little bit, until we get you fully built back up in the end of all of this. So yes, if you move from one protocol to the next, something might start trying to regrow, but let's be honest, antimicrobial protocols, especially herbal ones, they're not just targeted at one thing. They're targeted across the board because antimicrobial herbals have multiple different phytonutrients that are going to work across the board with so many different things. So it is holding down some of those other organisms that you've worked with just a little bit. They're not specific to it, but it's holding it down just a little bit. So as you work through all of these, it gets you to a point where you're able to really get that work done, really feel good, and really move forward, because we're not just spending all our time in one place while these other infections are just running rampant, right? So it's just simply building the body over time by suppressing infections. And sometimes we've got to knock out Babesia, return later to give you some herbs that help your immune system deal with it 6 months later or a year later, right? So I'm not promising you'll never have to work on things again. I'm just saying that focusing hardcore is not always the right option, because then you're letting some other things run rampant. All right, so a couple things I didn't say is sometimes you have to use some of the herbals that I recommended in combination. And one of my other favorite ones is Woad. That's a Supreme Nutrition product. And I combine that with a couple of other things because we found that to be pretty powerful on top of that. So my office does carry all these things, and we are not shutting down as far as I can tell, at least not yet. So if these things are of interest to you, if you need to get some help, let us know. I actually opened up a couple spots because I was supposed to be in Aruba for the rest of this week on a vacation for the first time in a couple of years. That's not happening. I wasn't going to leave the country and get quarantined and not be able to help everybody out. So I'm staying here and just working more. I'm going to be pouring into the Facebook page. So help me to grow this. Invite people that you know that have these symptoms and signs. Post some of these write-ups that we have out into other groups and see if we can't steer people into ours so we can grow our community while we're going through this. Because if we can't get to each other, let's educate each other. Let's add to the community every single day. Well, guys, thanks for joining me here. I'm going to head back home, rest, and get ready to produce a whole lot more content. So give me ideas, give me topics, and I'm just going to be driving them out there with all my free time that I have from not heading out on a vacation. Bye, guys.